Let me ask you about your assessment about what exactly happened in major cities such as Beijing and Shanghai over the past few days. Extremely hazardous smog. According to China's National Environmental Bureau, it is because coal burning plus emission from cars. Is that also your assessment, Professor?
I think that those are the two major causes for this long-lasting smog, very, very heavy smog. And at the same time, and we should come to a realization that, the optimism we had last year and earlier this year was really not supported by the hard fact. The fact is, right now, there is so much more that need to do. There is a long way to go before we really see and trust a clean and blue sky. And I think in addition to those factors, of course, the weather condition made it really worse. And same time, we have to say that the environmental regulation, the enforcement must be there to really ensure, a lasting blue sky.
We have been having some assessment earlier about exactly what have been the factors contributing to the eventual smog in major cities across China. 30% that was being regarded coming from the car emissions, vehicle emissions. And this time, Dr. Wang here in Beijing, you experienced it just like all of us. What do you make of the makeup of the factors contributing to the eventual smog?
Well, I think we still have to wait until the specific investigations of the scientists to find out what is the real cause of the smogs. But the major suspect, usual suspects, we are already quite aware. As we just mentioned, the emissions from the vehicles accounts for about 30% of the emissions to contributing to the smogs, and then is ambient pollution because we drive every day. And then when sometimes happens when the weather was not in favorable terms, right, we also got a lot of the emissions from burning coals, from small industries that surrounding Beijing. And this time, I think, especially because of the season of the heating starts, and we also heard from the Ministry of Environment Protection that there are lots of the municipal and even state-owned heating plants actually using the coal, disqualified coal, which has much higher sulfur content and also the ash content, which will actually contribute in much higher percentage of the smog. So that is something we really have to pay more attention and really to deliver the implementation of the regulations. Otherwise, we just have all the paperwork, but there's nothing we can do on real ground.
I love the fact that you have already mentioned the biggest suspect, coal. So let's talk about the coal and all the issues related to coal and coal burning in this country. Dr. Lin, we understand there has been increasing number of coal burning power plants being built recently in China. What do you make of this move? Meanwhile, how do you see the coal burning process made as a result of coal power plants vis-a-vis the coals consumed by small and medium-sized enterprises individually?
Well, thank you, Jiang, for inviting me to your program. This is a very timely question. I can't really comment on the weather condition in Beijing, but the source of air pollution in China is actually well known among the scientific community. It's roughly 50% due to coal burning, 25% due to oil burning. So in major cities, the proportion from vehicle might be a little higher. The second point I want to emphasize is that one city cannot really address its own air quality program. It really takes a regional effort. So Beijing needs to work with the surrounding provinces to truly control the air pollution in cities. Unfortunately, on vehicle side, Beijing is already taking the measure to introducing clean gasoline and diesel.
Right.
By next year, the 10 ppm gasoline and diesel will be adopted in Beijing and other major cities, and by 2017, it will be adopted across country. So that will be one major step forward in addressing air quality. However, as Professor Chia mentioned before, the enforcement of vehicle standards is also a major component to that.
Yeah, Dr. Lin,
So
but my
that's still a lot of work
question
to
to
be
you
done.
is mainly about the
Yeah.
coal. So let's concentrate on the coal. We can talk about all the issues related to this, and we could have a 1 day or 3 days discussion. But let's talk about coal for now, since it is contributing, at least coming to you, about 60%. So what about the coal burning power plants that are being planned and also being constructed, and also the coal burning process in these coal power plants vis-a-vis the coal burning consumed by small and medium-sized enterprises?
Now you asked a very, very good question. So in terms of coal use, roughly half is used in power plants, half is burned by industries and small boilers. So you're right to point out that that's the source of small boilers can lead to a near-term possibilities reducing pollution from those boilers. You can switch to bigger boilers, more efficient boilers, but also can add on air quality treatment devices for those boilers. In terms of coal power plant you mentioned recently, it is a very interesting phenomenon because the power demand is slowing down as Chinese economy is transitioning to a green economy, but also more service-based economy. It's much less power intensive. So the overall power demand growth is slowing down. At the same time, there is strong growth of renewables. So the need for coal power is really an interesting question for us to ask about. At any given moment, only 50% of coal power plant is operating, which means there's a lot of idle capacity. So we have to ask ourselves, when there's so much power plant that's being idled, why do we need to build more power plant?
I see. Dr. Wang here in
my own
Beijing.
assessment,
Dr. Wang here in
yeah.
Beijing. What do you think about the answers to the question raised by Dr. Lin?
I think Dr. Lin mentioned the point correctly, and he is spot on the issues of the coal burnings in the coal-fired power plants and also the industries. And we also have to recognize that the Chinese government has made a huge improvement in the fleet of the coal-fired power plants. The real problem today in terms of the coal burning emissions and contribution to the pollution are the small and medium heavy small heavy industries using coal, and also their emissions are not really subject to that stringent emission standards.
We're going to talk about them. We're going to
Sure.
talk about them, but let's just concentrate on the coal power plant for now. Are they necessary, especially newer ones? And what are the newer ones in terms of environmental standards?
I think this is also an interesting phenomenon because we have seen that, as Dr. Lin mentioned, the demand for the coal power plants is actually decreasing, but and at the same time, if you look at the local level, a lot of them actually are building more of the power plant, coal power plants.
Why is that?
The reason is that we have actually given the approval rights of the coal-fired power plants from the NDRC and the national level to the local level. Whereas if you can actually take advantage of this very low coal price at the moment and building the coal-fired power plant, you can actually quite easily make the profits back in a few years or even less than a year in some extreme cases. So you are actually adding this economic incentives for those provincial government and local governments to make the investment into the coal-fired power plant, because that generates the GDP, then brings jobs, and also brings them taxation revenues.
Really? Can I just follow up a little bit? Because Dr. Lin said that, in fact, almost half of those coal power plants now has been in a state of non-operation because of the demands for power has been going down rather than increasing. So when building power plants, especially coal power plants, is it really likely to bring them economic benefits as you just claimed?
Well, as you can imagine, this is more like a cake. The cake is probably growing slower and also even shrinking. But then when you build a new one, you actually can still take a large share of that, and then everyone else take a much smaller one. So when you're adding a new power plant there, you are the one benefit, but the cost is shared by all the fleet in the whole country. So there's still quite economic feasible for those people investing there.
It is still economic incentive?
It is.
Professor Qi?
It works very interestingly in terms of the economics of a coal-fired power plant. On the one hand, you don't really have the demand. On the other hand, you do have much lower price of coal. Therefore, for some of the power plant, they actually can make either make it even, or they can really profit on that because of the lower price of coal. Look at some of the major power companies here in China. On the one hand, they're losing money on the coal side. On the other hand, they're making a lot of money, a lot of profit by burning coal and making that power plant. But you asked a great question. In the long run, though, this is a big problem. This is a problem called the stranded asset. So in the long run, we're going to see a huge stranded asset that basically has no use and will not make a profit in the long run, even though they make a great profit right now.
That is one issue. The other issue is, what about these coal power plants, Professor Qi? Have they been using the good quality coal, as we all understand, the so-called cleaner coal, and also cleaner technology to process these coals? There has been debates about this because people are suggesting it's better to have these coal power plants to operate because they could have a certain level of control of the quality of the coal and the process of production. Instead, if you let those small and medium-sized enterprises that burning coal on their own, things will get even worse. So what do you make of this debate, Professor Qi?
Well, first of all, let's just make it clear. There is no such a thing as a clean coal. The coal is not clean, it's dirty. And that being said, I mean, you can
different
make
qualities.
You can make a cleaner coal, and there are different qualities of coal. That's true, and you're also right that by having the larger capacity, in the same time, the more advanced technology, you can really have in terms of the efficiency, that's the higher. That's a good idea. A third point is the coal used for power plant as compared to the coal that used for other industry or the much smaller facilities. The former is actually better. A lot of I think this year I have a theory, but I just suspect this year we have much tighter control on coal. Therefore, for a lot of smaller operations, they have no sources except going to the lower quality of coal. I think that might have contributed to the big smog this year. I mean this winter.
Dr. Lin, what do you make of the debates that I mentioned earlier about the coal power plants vis-a-vis individual operations of small and medium-sized enterprises of their own process of burning coal, and also the technologies and cleaner coal, as we mentioned earlier, being adopted in this process? Dr. Lin, your assessment.
So I think both Professor Qi and Mr. Wang made a lot of good points, so I want to repeat that. I want to point out a couple of things in addition to what they said. First of all, you're comparing apple with oranges, right? Coal burning in power plant and the coal quality in the small boiler are totally different issues. They're used to support different end uses. So you cannot say because you burn more in coal power plant, you can reduce boiler coal use in the small factories. They're just for different uses. The second question really is what you raised at the beginning of the program. When we have such an environmental challenge in terms of air quality in China today, shouldn't we be prioritizing much cleaner sources? As Professor Qi mentioned, energy efficiency, that's the cleanest solution. Then with all this clean energy that's available in China, both in the west and the north, in terms of wind and sun, shouldn't we give that priority instead of thinking about coal, which is already 2/3 energy supply in China today?